Have you ever heard of the Georgia Guidestones? A lot of people haven't, and honestly, that's kind of strange. Because this isn't some small hidden artifact or a dusty old rock in a museum. This is a massive granite monument, like 10 feet tall and weighing tons, standing right out in the open in a quiet field in Elbert County, Georgia. But here's where it gets weird. Nobody really knows who built it or why. And when you hear what's written on it, you'll understand why so many people think there's something dark and mysterious going on. Let's rewind a bit to 1979. A man shows up in Elberton, Georgia, and walks into a granite company called Elberton Granite Finishing. He introduces himself as R.C. Christian. But right away, he makes it clear, this isn't his real name. He says it's a fake name and that he's speaking on behalf of a group that wants to stay anonymous. Now, that's already pretty suspicious, right? I mean, who builds a massive stone monument and doesn't want credit for it? Anyway, he meets with the company's president and gives him very specific instructions. He wants a monument built out of granite. Not just any monument. He wants 4 vertical slabs arranged like a compass with a big horizontal capstone on top. And all of them are supposed to have writing engraved in different languages. But it's what that writing says that really got people talking. When the company president heard the request, he thought the guy was a little crazy. But R.C. Christian wasn't joking. He came prepared. He had detailed blueprints. He had the money, like a lot of money, and he said the monument had to serve as a guide for humanity in case of a global catastrophe. A new set of rules for a new world. So, in 1980, the Georgia Guidestones were officially unveiled to the public. And people were immediately confused and maybe even a little creeped out, because carved into the stones were 10 guidelines for humanity. 10 rules that sounded more like they belonged in some dystopian sci-fi novel than in a peaceful American field. The very first guideline says, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. That line alone set off alarm bells for conspiracy theorists, researchers, and everyday people alike. Hold on, 500 million? There are over 8 billion people on Earth right now. So, does that mean more than 90% of us have to disappear to make this rule work? Who decides that? How? And why? Of course, the people behind the monument never explained any of it. No press release, no interviews, no public face of the project. Just some anonymous group funding a monument with a rule that sounds suspiciously like population control. And remember, this isn't something hidden away. It's a public monument. You could go and touch it, take pictures with it, read every word. It was right there in the open, but no one could tell you who made it or what their real intentions were. The monument had inscriptions in 8 different languages: English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian, pretty much covering the major population groups around the world. The message was clearly meant for all of humanity, not just Americans, not just the West. But here's the thing that really bugs people. R.C. Christian, whoever he was, insisted that the monument wasn't just for fun. He said it had a purpose, that it was supposed to guide humanity in the aftermath of something catastrophic. Maybe a nuclear war, maybe a global collapse, something big enough to wipe out most of the population, which again ties back to that 500 million number. Like they were planning for a world where most of us wouldn't be around. And this wasn't just some eccentric local art project. The materials alone cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. The construction took serious planning, engineering, and manpower. It was built to last, like really last. Some people even called it America's Stonehenge, because of how strange and ancient it felt. And then there's the astronomical aspect. The monument wasn't just randomly placed. It was aligned with the stars. There were holes drilled in specific angles to track the sun's movement, mark solstices, and even show the position of the North Star. Like, who goes to that level of detail unless they're working on something way bigger than just a random monument? But the strangest part is how quiet everything stayed afterward. After the monument was built, R.C. Christian disappeared. No follow-up, no new messages, nothing. It's like whoever he was and whatever group he represented, they just wanted to leave this one message to humanity and then vanish into the shadows. Naturally, people started asking questions. Was it built by the Freemasons? The Illuminati? Some secret global elite planning a new world order? Some even believed it was tied to satanic cults or occult beliefs because of the mysterious nature of its origin and the cold logic behind the rules. Others believed it was meant to warn us, like a modern-day version of the Ten Commandments, but for a world that had already been broken. Maybe the creators weren't evil at all. Maybe they were trying to help in a strange, unsettling way. But that first rule, maintain humanity under 500 million, it's hard to look past that one, because no matter how peaceful the rest of the rules sound, they only work if the global population is reduced by billions. And that's not something that just happens naturally. That would take action, decisions, control. So here we are, looking at this quiet stone monument in a field, wondering what it really means. A lot of people have driven past it without even knowing it was there. But for those who stopped and really read what it says, the questions never stopped coming. Who were the people behind it? What did they really want? And why did they choose Georgia, a small town in the American South, to place something so globally focused? Some say it's a warning. Others say it's a threat. And if the population ever does drop to 500 million, what happens then? Do the rest of the rules come into play? Maybe we'll never know. So let's take a closer look at what exactly is written on the Georgia Guidestones. Because it's not just the first line that's causing people to talk. The whole set of rules, or commandments, if you want to call them that, reads like a plan for restarting civilization. But depending on how you interpret it, it can either sound like a guide to peace, or a creepy plan for total control. Here's the full list of what's engraved on those massive granite slabs. 1. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. 2. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. 3. Unite humanity with a living new language. 4. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. 5. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. 6. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. 7. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. 8. Balance personal rights with social duties. 9. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. 10. Be not a cancer on the earth, leave room for nature, leave room for nature. Now, on the surface, some of these sound almost poetic, right? Things like seek harmony, fair laws, and leave room for nature. They don't seem dangerous. In fact, they sound like things most of us would agree with. But it's once you start connecting the dots and you think about the context, that this is meant for a post-apocalyptic world with less than 500 million people, that's when it gets uncomfortable. Let's go to number 2. Guide reproduction wisely. Improving fitness and diversity. That line has made a lot of people nervous, because it sounds a lot like eugenics, a practice that tries to control who can and can't have children based on genetic traits. It's been used in the past by regimes that tried to purify their populations. It's not something that should be taken lightly. Who exactly gets to decide what wise reproduction means? And what does improving diversity mean to this mysterious group? And then there's number 3. Unite humanity with a living new language. At first, it sounds like they just want people to communicate better. But critics believe this is about more than just breaking language barriers. It could be about erasing culture. Imagine a world with only one language. No more local dialects. No more native tongues. No more cultural stories passed down for generations. Just one approved way of speaking. That's not unity, that's control. The 4th one says, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Again, sounds like a call for calm logic, right? But faith and tradition are deeply personal, emotional things. They're tied to identity, to family, to spirituality. Saying that all of those should be ruled by reason suggests a world where feelings, beliefs, and culture are pushed aside in favor of a cold, calculated system. A world where there's no room for passion or emotion, just order and control. Then we get to the parts that talk about government. Fair laws, just courts, a world court to settle disputes. Now, depending on who you are, this can sound like progress or something to be very afraid of. Supporters of global peace might see it as a beautiful dream, a world where countries don't fight anymore. But conspiracy theorists see something else. One world government. A single system of power, laws, and authority that controls everyone. No more national freedom. No more local choice. Just one set of rules for the entire planet. And if that court doesn't agree with your country's beliefs or traditions, too bad. Balance personal rights with social duties is another one that sparks debate. Sounds fair. Do your part for society, don't just think about yourself. But again, who decides what those duties are? What if the duties are things you disagree with? What if the system says your personal rights don't matter anymore because they go against the greater good? That's a slippery slope. The kind that many dystopian stories are built on. Then we have avoid petty laws and useless officials. Honestly, this one might be the least controversial. Most of us probably agree that some laws out there are kind of ridiculous. And bureaucracy? Yeah, we've all felt that frustration. But again, who gets to decide what's petty and what's necessary? If this world is being run by a powerful elite, they might think laws protecting freedom of speech or religion are petty. It all depends on who's in charge. And then there's the final line, repeated twice. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. It's almost poetic. But when paired with the first rule, keeping humanity under 500 million, it stops being poetic and starts sounding like a threat. Like humans are seen as a problem that needs to be reduced for the Earth to survive. Like we're being asked to shrink ourselves so that nature can take over again. All these messages feel like a mix of peace and warning. Like whoever wrote them wanted to sound helpful. But underneath the surface, there's this unsettling feeling. Because they didn't just leave behind words. They left behind rules. Not suggestions. Not ideas. Rules. Etched in stone. And the fact that they were translated into 8 major world languages makes it feel like it was meant for everyone. Every culture, every country, every person on Earth. And still, no one knows who funded it. No one has claimed responsibility. RC Christian? Completely vanished. The company that built it? They were paid in full and told not to ask questions. Even the local government had no real explanation. And when people started questioning the monument, they were told it was just a mystery. Just a monument for future generations. But let's be honest. People don't spend that kind of money, plan out astronomical alignments, write rules in multiple languages, and then disappear unless they're hiding something. It's not just what the monument says that makes people uneasy. It's what it doesn't say. There's no explanation, no story, no purpose that's clearly stated. Just 10 lines carved in stone and a whole lot of questions left behind. And here's the most chilling part. What if it really was meant as a blueprint? What if there is a group out there that believes the world should be controlled this way? What if they're still watching, still waiting, still planning? Or worse, what if they've already started? When you read these commandments one by one, you start to notice a pattern. They're not just random ideas. They're steps, a framework, a system, and they sound less like a suggestion for the future and more like preparation. Just when people started getting used to the mystery of the Georgia Guidestones, something completely unexpected happened. On the morning of July 6, 2022, at around 4 a.m., a loud explosion echoed across Elbert County. One of the massive granite pillars had been blown apart. Surveillance footage later showed a flash of light, followed by smoke. Someone had bombed the Guidestones, and just like that, the world's most mysterious monument turned into a crime scene. People were shocked. Some were angry. Others were relieved. And of course, conspiracy theories exploded online. Who did it? And why? Was it someone trying to silence the message? Was it a warning? Or maybe, was it staged? Not long after the bombing, authorities decided to take down the rest of the monument for safety reasons. They brought in heavy equipment and removed every last piece. Just like that, something that stood untouched for over 40 years was erased in a single day. Gone. Like it was never there. No memorial, no preservation effort. Nothing. That made the mystery even deeper. Because now, the only evidence left is in old photos, news reports, and online theories. Some people think the destruction was an act of protest. Maybe someone believed the stones were part of a secret plan for global control and wanted to destroy the evil. Others believe it was done by the same people who built it to cover their tracks. After all, if the world was starting to pay too much attention, maybe they decided it was time to make it disappear. And then there are people who think the demolition was just an accident or a random act by someone who wanted attention. But nothing about the Guidestones ever felt random. Everything about them seemed planned, detailed, intentional. Even the timing of the destruction feels symbolic. In recent years, global events have shaken people's trust in institutions. Pandemics, wars, economic collapses, rising surveillance. It almost felt like the world was becoming the kind of place the Guidestones were written for. A broken society in need of rebuilding. So the fact that the monument was destroyed right now, in this specific moment of global uncertainty, raises even more questions. Some theorists believe that the Guidestones were a public version of a private plan, like a teaser, a clue, something to test how people would react to the idea of a new world order. They say it wasn't just a message, it was a warning, a set of rules that some powerful group believes will eventually become reality. And now that the stones are gone, they might be ready to act behind the scenes without anyone watching. There's even talk that the Guidestones contain deeper secrets, hidden messages, underground chambers, time capsules. When the site was cleaned up, some people claim strange symbols were found on the debris. Others say the demolition team discovered metal objects or hidden writings underneath the base. Nothing has been officially confirmed. But the internet, of course, has its theories. And you know how it is with secrets. When something is destroyed, it becomes more suspicious. If it really was just a monument for peace and harmony, why destroy it? Why not preserve it in a museum? Why not explain more about it? The silence only fuels the fire. Now that the physical stones are gone, the real monument is the mystery they left behind. The questions, the silence, the fact that something so big could be built, maintained, and then erased without any clear explanation. It's like the entire story was written in invisible ink, waiting for someone to uncover the truth. But the more you look, the deeper it goes. There's also a strange shift happening. Before, the Guidestones were this silent structure sitting in the middle of nowhere, barely noticed by most people. Now, everyone's talking about them. The destruction made them famous. Videos, articles, podcasts. Millions of people who had never even heard of them are now asking questions. So maybe that was the point all along. Maybe the monument's final message wasn't written in stone. It was the attention it created once it was gone. And here's something else to think about. What if the Guidestones weren't meant for us? What if they were never intended for the people of today? Maybe they were meant for survivors of some future collapse. A guide for the world after everything falls apart. That's what the creators said, right? A message for future generations. So if that's true, what happens next? What kind of event would make those 10 commandments relevant? And who decides when it's time to use them? Some believe the destruction of the stones marks the end of one phase and the beginning of another. Like the monument served its purpose, delivered its message, and was removed just in time. A symbolic ritual, a final act. Sounds crazy, I know. But when you look at how strange the whole thing is, from the anonymous builder to the creepy rules to the sudden destruction, it's hard not to feel like there's more going on here than we're being told. It's hard not to wonder if this was all just the tip of the iceberg. And that brings us to the most important question of all. Was the Georgia Guidestones a warning to humanity or a plan? A blueprint waiting to be activated? Maybe the group behind it is still out there. Maybe they're still working in secret, watching, waiting. Maybe the next step isn't carved in stone. Maybe it's already in motion. So what do you think? Were the Georgia Guidestones a peaceful vision for a better future? Or a chilling sign of a secret agenda? Was their destruction just vandalism? Or the beginning of something much bigger? Let me know what you think in the comments. I want to hear your theories, because when it comes to this story, everyone has a different version of the truth.